Hello, 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 and welcome to Tips and Tea with Coach Britney. The person who will be spilling the tea on all things mental health and empowerment is Miss Solita Day. Miss Solita Day is a licensed social worker, a certified school social worker, the proud author of Blue, A Journey Towards Peace. And in the past, she has been a family advocate, family therapist, mobile therapist, behavior specialist, clinical supervisor for a residential treatment facility, foster care program director, and currently serves with the Sisters of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated and is a child of the Most High. Please help me welcome Miss Solita Day.
Thank you, Britney.
Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today here at Tips and Tea. Again, we are all about empowerment and mental health and the people that serve within that space. So thank you so much for giving up your time and your the gems that I know you're going to drop. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, you mentioned a whole lot. I've been in the social work field for over 30 years. Got involved in social work because I don't know if you're too young to know about the Koolaid man on the commercial.
I recall.
Okay,
I just look young.
I definitely came from one of those Koolaid family, from the commercial. Everybody was at our house talking to my parents. Adults, kids. My parents were always involved in the community, always helping out other people. So we saw that coming up. So it was just a natural transition for me to want to help others.
That is wonderful. It's so nice to see when it's like multi-generational, and that really speaks to how what we do and what our children see is what they begin to emulate. So that is so beautiful about that foundation work that is so necessary to, the generations that come behind us, their success. So thank you so much for sharing that. So with that, what inspired you to go from just saying, I want to help people to I want to go to school, invest my money, invest my time, and become a social worker?
That's funny because when I went to college, I studied business administration and accounting because I was about that dollar.
Okay, dollar.
I got to like my junior year and started doing the internship, and I was interning at a bank and I was volunteering at Crispus Attucks. So I found that I was getting more joy out of volunteering at Crispus Attucks than I was working at the bank. So I actually went back. I changed schools, went from Bloomsburg University to York College of Pennsylvania to study behavioral health so that I could help others. That's where my joy was coming from. That's where I felt like I could impact the future, not just the youth that I was working with, but helping to break some of those generational curses, teaching them, empowering them, helping them to be our future. And, how do I want to frame this? Having the impact on society that I knew that these youth could have.
Yeah, I think that is so important. I definitely live by the each one reach one or each one teach one mantra. So it's so beautiful when people adopt that lifestyle and become community aunties or community parents or community just advocates for the betterment of the community that we live in. So thank you again for all that you do and all that you have given throughout the 30 plus years that you've been in the service of social work. Could you tell me a little bit about your personal experiences that have shaped your approach to counseling or therapy or your interactions with the families that you serve?
Sure. So as you're aware, I am the author of Blue, A Journey Towards Peace. And it was this book that really allowed me to speak to others on a more global realm. My book talks about how I was victimized and refused to be a victim. So a lot of us go through trials and tribulations. We be saying life be lifing, okay? And how we deal with life and our different scenarios that we have to go through make us who we are today. So I knew at some point, I won't say I can identify exactly when, but I knew at some point that my story had to be told.
Yeah.
And when I told my story, I found that there were a lot of people whose story I also wrote. So coming to terms with my mental health, my depression, helped me help others. So that's what my goal has always been, to help others. So when I said, okay, it's time for me to speak up, this is going on and it's acceptable. And it's time to tell people it's not acceptable. Yeah. And just because you go through something, your circumstances do not define who you are. And I refuse to let what I've been through define who I was.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much, how you just transformed a story where you could have easily took on a victim mentality, but chose to be victorious in that moment, or maybe not in that moment, but, as you progress through life. So again, thank you for sharing that, because sometimes it really takes a lot of strength to be able to kind of bear your soul in that way. And while we know that we're not the only people that have that experience, it doesn't make it any less painful or any less real for us as the individuals who experience those things. So thank you for being a light in a very, very dark place as it pertains to, those types of assaults. So in that, I wanted to know about, in your experience, what are some of the common mental health challenges that individuals face, not just as victims, but, on this podcast, we talk about things that really pertain to the BIPOC community, because sometimes, those things are a little bit more amplified within our community. And there are some things that are exclusive as far as, the generational traumas and different things that are passed down within our DNA, truly. So with that, what are some things that are common mental health challenges that are faced by the population that you serve?
Okay, so let's just backtrack a little, because within our community, within our culture, some things are have been acceptable, have been tolerated for a long time. We've seen grandma go through this, we see mom go through this, and we're expected to go through it with the same silence that they had, and I couldn't do that. Yeah. There are a lot of people in our generation who can't sit still, who can't hold their tongue anymore, because it's not acceptable. If Uncle Johnny is coming to the cookout and everybody says the kids need to stay away from Uncle Johnny, then Uncle Johnny shouldn't be at the cookout. Facts. And that is what, as a culture, we were brought up to accept. And it got to the point where, as an adult, I didn't think it wasn't acceptable, and I wasn't accepting it. I did not want to see not one other child victimized in any way, shape, or form. And if that meant I had to stand up and be standing alone, then that's what I had to do. When I decided to tell my story and speak on my depression and speak on the fact that I did not feel supported by my community, by my family, that's hard. That's hard to hear as a family member. That's hard to say as, as me, as the victor. But sometimes the truth hurts. And if we continue to mask the truth, more generations are going to continue to get hurt. So, people don't say, they don't think of depression as a mental health issue. They think of depression as a state of mind. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's depressed. She'll get over it. She needs to get outside. She needs to do this. She needs to do that. Not realizing all the symptoms and signs of depression that they're probably going through as well. So, when you look at the irritability, when you look at the fact that, oh, I don't have the strength to clean my house, I don't have the strength to get up, I don't have the strength to take a shower. Yeah, there's an issue, and we have to deal with that issue, and we can deal with it by ourselves, or we can choose to get the help that we need to move forward. I chose to get the help that I needed to move forward. And in doing that, it ruffled a lot of feathers. But, it also helped me gain what I needed to gain. I got me back, stronger. Women in our community have gone through a lot. Well, women and men. Women and men have gone through a lot. And they don't want to be seen as weak. Our men are protectors. My father beat himself up because he was the one that was supposed to protect me from getting hurt. He put the boundaries in place so that I wouldn't get hurt. So he didn't expect that, and was willing to risk his life when I came home proclaiming that I had been victimized. I thank God every day that the police officer got to the car the same time my father got to the car, or my father, my life wouldn't be what it is today. And really the impact that he has had on the community wouldn't have been there, because all of that could have changed in a split second. That's who our men are. Those are our protectors. So when you come to a man and say, hey, this happened, it's easy to deny it. It's easy to say, no, that didn't happen to my girl, my baby girl. So not only was he trying to help me, he then had to find help for himself because he felt less than. Now, he wouldn't have told you that, but his actions would have.
Right.
And then the generation that they came up in, they want to know what could you have done differently? Could you have worn something differently? Could you have said something differently? Could you have done more to get yourself out of a situation like that? That's not them talking. That's their mental health. That's their exposure to their experiences, and it's so easy to deflect the blame, deflect the hurt, deflect the guilt. It's easy to do that, but I wasn't having it. So that's why I said my inner strength had to come out at that point in time to help me stand firm in what I was doing, because I refused to be victimized. And even going through the court process with that was another step, because that's not something that generations before us would have done. Let's work this out amongst ourselves and go our merry way. And I wasn't for that. Now, I could have wrote my book a long time ago, but it wasn't the time. And I felt like when it was the time, I sat down in a weekend and wrote the entire book, because it was time for my story to be told. It was time for little girls to know that they are valuable, that their word matters. And it doesn't matter who around them doesn't believe them. They're just as important as the next person.
Right. And I think that's a beautiful message. I want to give space to speaking directly to that young man, young woman, child, whoever that may be currently being victimized or has been victimized but is afraid to stand up and say something. I want to leave space right now to directly speak to them. So what would you say to the young person or older person who is holding the unbearable weight of being assaulted or touched inappropriately? What would you say to them to encourage them to, move forward in their healing?
There's nothing that we do that invites assault. There's nothing that we do. Your body belongs to you, and no one should touch you in any way that makes you feel uncomfortable. If that happens, you need to seek assistance. We have friends, we have parents, we have other adults that we trust that we can turn to and talk about it. The reality is, more people between the ages of 40 and 60 come out and speak to tell that this happened to them years ago because they were afraid to speak up. You have a voice now. Now's the time to speak.
So you heard it right here from a victor, a survivor, and a mental health professional, that now is the time to speak up. Now is the time to advocate for yourself. Now is the time to take the message that you're hearing right now and use it as a sign to say something so that you can get the help that you need in order to become the best version of yourself, because this weight is not yours to carry. So I'd like to transition from this moment and honor what just happened, but also transition to a professional sense. And the people that you serve, the families that you serve, the children that you serve, how do you address situations like the isms, the racism, the classism, the sexism? We know you're in a school. As you guys can see in the background, she is in her office at work. However, when you're dealing with babies, and you're dealing with the climate that we're in right now, we're on the heels of a very tense election cycle. We are, in a period of time where people are emboldened to talk about their racist views and just different things that they have on their heart that are detrimental to just the community at large. When we're talking about unity, how do we address things like racism, like classism, like sexism, in a way that they understand?
Let's be honest. The students are bringing into the school what they are learning at home. Doesn't matter what we teach in the school, the students are bringing it in. So our job here at the school is to teach all of the students that every one of them is important. It's okay to disagree with others' views, but it's not okay to disrespect. So we've had peer mediations, we've had different table talks with students, but we choose to build on like a clean slate, so to speak. So we have core values that we address every month. This month is empathy. We've addressed responsibility, respect, just morals and ethics. And we're building that in them so that they can be productive members of society, because what they're learning in school is not only reading and math. Relationships are huge. So it's what we do here is work with them one-on-one in groups. We're teaching reading and math. We're teaching social skills. We're teaching how to love self and how to love others. That doesn't always go well with some parents, but that doesn't mean that we stop doing what we're doing. There are a lot of students that have been traumatized in different ways. The pandemic traumatized all of us. So there was a lot of babies that saw things that, they typically wouldn't see because they would be in the school during the day, but all of our babies were at home. So we come from a trauma-informed care philosophy when we're dealing with our students. But it's not only the students that have been traumatized, it's also the staff. We have a strong EAP, employee assistance program in place that is addressing the needs of our community, of workers. So with our students, to be honest, I would say that the counseling piece in our school and a lot of schools is falling short because we have that deficiency of workers. You know, teachers aren't going into the field, counselors aren't going into the field, social workers aren't going into the field. So when it comes time for one-on-one mental health counseling, it's not necessarily available. At our school, we have 2 licensed social workers, so we can provide that mental health, but 2 on 750 students.
Yeah.
Even if we saw every student, we never get through all of those students in a month at all. And the school-based therapy services that once were in most schools aren't as prevalent now as they were in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think is a barrier? I mean, at this point, because I mean, we know that there are deficits. We know that, you know, people aren't entering the field as much as they used to. But what do you think is the barrier?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Again, the trauma that a lot of people experienced during the pandemic has a lot of people not willing to reach out and help carry those backpacks that our students come with. The teachers aren't coming into the field the way they had come into the field before. Excuse me. So, you know, what do you do with these students who have mental health needs, but we don't have enough mental health providers for their needs? You know, then they get brief therapy, 20 minutes a week. How is that going to be sufficient?
Yeah.
It's that balance that we're trying to have.
Right. And with somebody who literally lives the ethics, I've watched you for years live out not just social worker ethics as I go along in my MSW program, but godly ethics. Sometimes dealing with situations like you just said, it can be heavy because we understand the deficits. We are in that helping profession. So how do you take care of yourself so that you can continue fighting the good fight of helping?
Self-awareness is key. Knowing when I'm drifting toward a darker spot, knowing when I feel like I don't have the energy that I once had, just being aware. Talking to my husband is definitely a help. A lot of stuff I deal with is confidential. So, the students that unpack their book bags, it's being packed into mine because I'm carrying this with me to help ease the load for them. So when mine gets a little heavy, I have to make sure that I'm taking care of me. Self-awareness is key. And I'll be honest, last year, this time, I was drifting in that darker spot. And thank God for some of my sorors, my sorority sisters that are in place that could see that and could step in. They prayed for me. They stepped in and took over responsibilities that I had. And I'm grateful for that because sometimes I don't catch it in time. And other people can bring it to my attention. My husband has brought it to my attention. And it's like, okay, so I got to take a step back. I got to look at what I'm doing. I got to take care of me. I'm big on herbal teas. So when you said this was tea time, I was ready.
Yes.
So I take care of me and I take time for me. Everybody could take up all of our time, but I take time for me. And without that self-awareness, I don't know where I would be at this point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that strategy. I think right now is a good way to segue into you showing us that cute little teapot you got over there. So as she's spilling the tea on all things mental health and empowerment, she is also sipping the tea out of that beautiful, beautiful teapot and teacup set. Yes, we love it. We love it, love it, love it. And as you guys progress through, or as I progress through this podcast journey, I will also be bringing cute little teacups that represent all kinds of different things. But today, I needed the big dog. Okay, so this is my tea for all the tips and everything else that she is going to be imparting into us, but also the hydration that we all need. Okay, so make sure you guys are staying hydrated out there. Just because it is not hot anymore does not mean you don't need to hydrate.
Right.
So I want to segue into a moment where listeners, viewers, everybody that is witnessing this wonderful conversation can take some notes. So I'll give you guys about 5 seconds to go ahead and grab a pen and some paper if you have not already done so, because here in a second, Miss Solita is going to be dropping some practical tips that you can implement into your life today, right now, so that you can make sure that your mental health is sustained or increased or whatever you need. She gonna help you out a little bit, okay? So we're gonna give you 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. All right, I hope you got your pens and pencils, ladies and gentlemen, because the first question is, what advice would you give to individuals who want to seek mental health support but are afraid?
They're not alone. There are a lot of people who are afraid to take that first step. Again, we were in our community, we're taught what goes on in our house stays in our house. So we don't want to go out and talk to a therapist, but it's okay. It's okay. My suggestion would be to find a therapist that feels comfortable to you. Everybody doesn't find that therapist on the first try. Sometimes it's 2 and 3 tries before you find the right therapist. But it's important to take care of you and to get the help that you need, even if that first step is scary.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that little drop for your bucket. So hopefully you guys wrote that down and put that in your backpack to use a little bit later when you are looking for a mental health clinician to help you along the way. With that, I lost it. Never mind. All right. So we're going to move on to the next one. What are some self-care strategies that individuals can implement in their life right now?
I would say one of the biggest things is to become physically active. That means different things to different people. It could be as simple as walking. Make yourself a goal as far as walking. I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day. I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day. That's being physically active. You know, some people go to the gym. Some people go roller skating. You know, it's a lot of different ways to be physically active. But that's one thing that you need to do. Becoming physically active Becoming physically active creates endorphins that are being released to help you feel better. So being physically active is one thing that I would encourage.
Yes. Thank you so much for that tip. Because a lot of people think that, self-care is like, oh, I'm going to go get my hair done, or I'm going to get my lashes done, or I'm going to do all of these different expensive things. And they feel like if they don't have the money or the means or the connections, that they cannot engage in self-care practices. So Miss Solita literally gave us one self-care practice that we can do for absolutely free. Walking around your block, getting active, moving your body, get out into the sunlight, because it will really, really make a difference in your life if you do it and stay consistent with it.
Yep.
Number 3, and this is the final nugget for our buckets on today. I am a MSW student over at Millersville University. And for those of you guys who do not know what MSW stands for, it's Masters of Social Work. I am looking to go into the clinical field of social work and being a clinical psychotherapist at the end of all of this. With that in mind, what tips would you give me as I enter into this field of mental health service?
Your mental health is most important. You can't pour from an empty bucket. You also are one that is in the community that is always helping others, and it's very easy to pour into others without allowing others to pour into us. So being aware of who's pouring into you, first of all, because you don't want just anybody pouring into you, but allowing the right people to pour into you so that you have substance to pour out. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
And that's pouring into you academically. That's pouring into you spiritually. That's pouring into you from all different realms. So just be cognizant of who's pouring into you, because sometimes we're not aware that this person is in our ear talking. They're actually pouring into us. And everything that's poured into us shouldn't necessarily be poured into us. So just be aware of that.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for that nugget. I often tell people you need to protect your gates. That's your ear gates, your eye gates, anything that has the potential to, come on in and take root. Watch those portals, watch those things. So I am so grateful for you just driving that point home and really, really, putting emphasis on that thing that I tell so many people. So as we wrap up today's session, I wanted to know if you are currently accepting any clients or anything like that outside of what you do at the school.
I am not currently accepting clients. The school is full-time, and these families here a lot of times go outside of school hours. So that's where my focus is right now.
All right. So you guys heard it here first. And as far as Blue, A Journey Towards Peace, where can our viewers buy that, look at it, how they gonna get it in their hands?
That is on Amazon, and I still have a few copies left at the house. So you could always inbox me, send me an email, solitaday@gmail.com, and I could get a copy to you.
Alrighty, so she is located right here in the sunny city of York, Pennsylvania. So if you are local, please make sure that you support the wonderful efforts that she has done. If you are from York, you already know her. You already know what this is, okay? So make sure that we are supporting the people that support us. As always, if you have not already, make sure that you click the subscribe button below so that you do not miss an episode of Tips and Tea with Britney here on YouTube. Make sure that you share this amongst your friends, your followers, your frenemies, all them people. We want to make sure that this information gets into the hands of everybody within our community and extends outward, because all of the tips and the tea that she spilled today is invaluable. So thank you again, Miss Solita Day, for all of the nuggets you dropped in our bucket today. We honor you, we love you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.